I received. Let's have a look. Sorry.
The recording has started.
Right. And this is what we want to share. Right.
Wonderful. There we are.
Okay. I beg your indulgence and grace. I had to chuckle when this happened because, as you know, something like this happening has the ability to really derail every good intention that you had. Is everybody still there?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. The silence is deafening.
No, we're waiting for you to start this whole session, I guess.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's kick off. What we've done, Bernard, is originally we started off with this session being a skills transfer session. And then based on the discussion, the last discussion we had, we decided, no, hold on a second. Let's take a step back and in actual fact, make this a technology review to allow you guys to really decide whether or not this is truly something that you actually agree with, and specifically, how can we put it, enlightened by all of the work that Joel has been doing in the background. Now it's imperative, and you will see this, the structure that we've planned and prepared for our session today, next week, and probably one or two sessions after that. We are still uncertain because it completely depends on the amount of participation and the amount of discussion, etc. But it is imperative for you to acknowledge our AO design and solution objectives, to really ascertain and validate the relevance in your environment. Now, I'm going to switch off my camera. You know now what my face looks like, and especially in semi-darkness. And you're going to get arc eyes in any case, due to the reflection from the window on my chrome dome, as we refer to it. So first and foremost, I'm going to go into an in-depth discussion around the design and solution objectives of AO Open. Then we will do a high-level demonstration of the current enterprise proof of concept website. And we will analyze the architectural components of the AO Open solution based on that website that is currently up and running. Looking at the client browsers, Node.js if it's a front-end developer, Nginx on Pace, Apache on Pace, the QHTTP server subsystem on IBM I. Then you're not rid of Tommy yet. He will briefly talk about the AO Open components, and I'm talking the IBM I components, the open source generic components, the security components, and then the JSON driver templates. And then I will talk again through the information flow process, because it's very important to have that picture in your mind throughout our discussion. And that will probably conclude today's session, providing that the battery on the laptop as well as on the inverter lasts. Then next week, you have Tommy for the entire day or for the entire session, where we will then actually go through the code line by line. First and foremost, the JSON driver templates, then the open source security components, and then the open source generic server program components, where Tommy will talk you through every single line of the code. Very important, you will see in the meantime, we've reached the decision. It was something that Tommy and I grappled with a long time and quite a lot, until Clifford talked some sense into us to open source absolutely everything. So all of the code, there will be no black box components. There will be nothing that will be protected. We are actually making all of it available to the entire community. And then Tommy will talk through a complete mini data-centric application in debug mode to actually demonstrate to you what data centricity truly means and how it actually behaves, because it is fundamental to this entire discussion. The following week, I will then recap all of the components and the solutions, just again to provide a baseline, and then delve into the intricacies of all of the components, starting with a QHTTP server subsystem. And one of the things you will note in the presentation is that I'm trying to approach the subject most of the time from the web client perspective, but it's always extremely important for you to remember that AO and Tembo as a company, we coming from a very specific IBM-I perspective. So the QHTTP server subsystem is where all of this stuff comes together. And it's a object that everybody participating in the session can probably relate to. Then we will go into the Common Gateway interface jobs and actually analyze and look at that and how it behaves. We will look at the AO Open Apache instance, and you will see that I will take the lead there, but I'm relying heavily on Clifford to keep me on the rails. And I'll talk about this a little bit later on, but it's very important to recognize the lecturers and what their backgrounds are within the perspective of what it is that we are talking about. Then we will look at the Nginx config file. We will look at the AO Open Apache config file, because it's very important to understand how all of these components communicate with each other. Then Clifford has volunteered, and by now you know that I love volunteers, has volunteered to go through an in-depth analysis on Bruno, which is our recommended API testing solution. He will briefly talk about the GitHub source repos and the integrated file system and how we're sharing the code at the moment, and also where the intentions are longer term. He will talk briefly about Node.js, and he will also talk about installing the distro briefly, or working on alternative methods in the meantime. And he will superficially discuss Visual Studio Code. Then we really come together. This is really where everything comes together, and that is requesting and consuming and rendering the JSON result sets. And Tommy is once again back there to actually demonstrate to you how we use Bruno in consuming and testing and the rendered JSON result sets. In Bruno, we will then go into an in-depth review of the various AOO JavaScript components. And again, I will lead the way with Clifford in support if I lose myself along the way. Then maintaining the left-hand navigation bar, and this will make a little bit more sense a little bit down in our session. Then we will look at the log on, log off, and authorization reset processes. Then we will render prot.org, the JSON payloads from Prot-Ord into the website or onto the website, and the same with ProMIP 7, to demonstrate to you how we will go about doing this. Then we get into a subject that I've been living and breathing for probably the past year or so. Those of you that have worked in IT for a very long time knows that troubleshooting is as much, if not more, than an art than it is a science, because you have to identify where things are going wrong before you can sensibly actually test it. So again, Clifford has volunteered to review specifically how to troubleshoot Bruno as a standalone application. So it's not to do with the actual solution as we provide it, or as we intend to provide it. That is more Bruno in general, and how you can use Bruno in your environment. And we can talk about the various possibilities of tools in that space. I'll then look at the client browser and the developer tools. I'll then delve into Apache, and specifically how to start trawling your way through Apache and determining where things go wrong. The Apache error logs, then into the QHTTP server subsystem. Then looking at the job logs, and this is really to try and identify and help you and show you that the locations of places where you will go and look for where things went wrong. Then we will look at the individual session jobs. That is the sessions that we will establish during our sessions the next couple of weeks, and I'm talking here IBM I sessions, and how to actually troubleshoot that. Then considering the use of the AOO log file, and then we will get right towards the end, and I want you to continuously keep this in the back of your mind. At the end of these sessions, really what we want to do is to actually talk through the considerations for using AO Open as the potential foundation for Bolt-Wright's next generation interface. Now, you have to please keep in mind throughout the next couple of weeks this question: is absolute data centricity a strategic imperative for Bolt-Wright? You don't have to answer me this at this stage. It's important, though, that you continuously ask yourself that question as we walk through the entire solution. Then we have to, from our end, redevelop the current proof of concept implementation to be View 3 compliant. We make extensive use of the View framework, and we've got to actually upgrade it to View 3. Then providing the small advanced modernization demonstration application that Tommy is going to demonstrate next week. As a complete open source example, we've actually in the meantime decided that we will bring that as the first solution to the entire installed base. Then we will assist Neil in completing his master contacts file application. Bernard, that he's been working on in the background, and he's been waiting on us. Neil is innocent in this entire exercise. I'm pretty confident he was reasonably frustrated with me in particular, because I just said, well, I'm not ready to assist him on that process because there was more crucial things to attend to. Then looking at advanced R&D efforts, and all of this will be in the last session. We will consider, for instance, the use of Mermaid open source plugins for entity relationship diagrams, executive dashboards, graphing, etc. And we will share with you the whole thought process around that. And then I would like to discuss at that point in time, if this is something you want to pursue, is to look at the enterprise role-based authentication module, potential participation and influencing the direction of that particular application. And then something that Tommy and I thought will be a very nice little gift to the community is to deliver open source JSON drivers for the help text and secondary help text from predefined messages from native IBMI applications, because we do know that a lot of installations have over the years adopted this approach in communicating with the users, and we would like to actually unlock that. And that is in essence the structure that we are going to work towards in the next couple of sessions. Now, my question to you, Bernard, is do you feel that that will answer the questions that you have in your mind at the moment?
Absolutely. I think this is a very detailed plan, and I'm very excited to see the next. Yeah, I think so. I think really we're gonna go deep into the. We had the last session we had a quick overview of the JSON driver, but now we're gonna go deeper, and yeah.
We will go as
I think everything is there.
okay. We will go as deep as you want to go. You dictate that particular part. But as I said, and okay, let's charge ahead. And you are looking at a charging elephant here. And yeah. I thought, let me just have a little bit of fun.
I want to know what happened to the person who took that picture.
Yeah.
He's alive and well, because in actual fact, that's a mock charge, Tommy. But believe me, he had to go and wash himself afterwards.
I'm sure.
Well, okay. To the Marinus, to the benefit of my friends here.
Yes.
Well, the next slide.
Yes.
When I started for American Buildrite in 1991, this was exactly the system that we were using, a System 38. And it was like this, and we on top of that we had 5 hard drive that were about the size of the left box, which is a printer. This is a line printer for paper, and this is for Luvic and Joel, especially because I think Francis did see that once, but that we were having 5 more cabinet like the one on the left, and those were hard drives. Can you imagine?
Well, and if I recall correctly, Bernard, the 30, because it was 3370s was the designation of those drives, as you may recall, and it was 600 megs, if I recall correctly.
600 and
megs.
I think it was around about 600 megabytes.
Yeah, 600 megabytes. Yeah, they were small. Yeah.
No,
and they were the size of a dishwasher.
They were actually pretty big.
They were big, but no capacity.
It's like I tell my grandchildren that we grew up without television. They won't believe me. It's the same story. The youngsters don't believe this stuff ever existed.
Yeah, no.
Well, just to give the audience a feel, because we haven't dealt a lot with each other, and I thought, okay, let me just do something similar to what Tommy did in the beginning to explain to the audience who he is and what his background is, etc., etc. I started in 1983 as a trainee RPG programmer on a System 38 Model 2, which had the mighty sum of 2 megabytes of main storage. And we supported something like 15 online users on that machine. But in any case, the important thing is that I started life as a programmer, spent a fairly substantial portion of my career in high availability and systems management, clustering, partitioning, which is where I bumped my head into the modernization space, right towards the turn of the millennium. But funny enough, Tommy and I, in actual fact, have a very long association. I happen to be, well, he happens to be one of my mentors many, many moons ago, where I implemented an application that he developed. And I supported that at a very large paper manufacturing concern in South Africa. And I implemented that particular application that was developed by Tommy. So Tommy and I have had association over the years.
Yes.
And that is why Tommy is so gray and so old.
So Tommy is older than you, Marinus.
Yeah, by a good 10 years.
Okay. And just a little parenthesis here for the benefit of Ludovic and Joel, which are they are newcomers into that platform. And this is important because in 1983, in my case, it was in 1991, but I started on 34 system and then 36 and then 38. Programs that were developed in 1983 are still running on the AS400 as is. Okay, so
and the IBMI.
On the IBMI. So this is the power of this platform. There's no other system in the world that can do that, without any change. Okay,
I got one better than that. I wrote the first RPG program I ever wrote was on a Model 3, System 3 Model 10.
Yes.
System 3 Model 10. In RPG, they didn't have any numbers after it. It was just RPG. Yeah. And it was a genuine report program generator.
Yes, but that's because you're older than us, Tommy.
Yes, but I'm trying to make a point here. Give me a break. I printed out that program and I've kept it all these years. 10 years ago on the IBM I typed that program, which came from 1980, no, it was 1979, somewhere around there. I typed that program into PDM, SEU rather, on an IBM 10 years ago. And it compiled and it ran.
It ran, of course. So
as you say, it's the only platform in the world that is retro capable that far back. We're talking about virtually the first RPG program ever written.
Okay, but the important thing to remember out of all of this is that remember what happened to processor technologies, where we went from a 30-bit CISC processor to a 32-bit RISC and then 64-bit RISC. And the beauty is that our code immediately executes across the full register. Now, nobody else can claim that.
No.
They would love to, but they can't.
Certainly not Windows, that's for sure. Right, let's move on.
I think we better, otherwise we will start reminiscing about the past. But very important, okay, there's my contact details. Then the other culprit that is hiding and lurking somewhere in our session is Clifford Weinman, who actually started on the other side of the fence. in 1991 on ICL DRS 6000, they beat IBM to the punch with using the 6000 moniker. And it was ICL's Unix System V, or AT&T Unix System V implementation. So he's been playing in the Unix and Linux puddle most of his life.
Shame.
And he started as a programmer as well. Now, very important, he doesn't work for Tembo, although I've had designs on him for a very, very long time and he knows it. So I'm not going to even be secretive about it. But he has had a keen interest, and he has a keen interest in what we are doing and what we are doing, attempting to achieve. Well, not attempting, we are busy doing. And this is what a charging buffalo looks like, which happens to be my nickname.
Oh, charging buffalo?
Yeah, Black Death. It used to be, let me put it this way, I remind myself that is the way that a lot of people sees me.
Great.
And as a result, I have to continuously remind me, throttle back, stand back, take a deep breath, and just talk through these things. Now, as I've said, and please, this is extremely important for your entire team, Bernard, is to continuously think about the things that I'm going to share with you now, because it is critical that you understand that these design objectives and considerations influenced us, and it is absolute considerations for us. And that is what we designed the entire solution to do. Now, before I dive into it, I have a question, because I threw the gauntlet out to Joel in our last session where I said, will he be so kind and to document for himself, you don't have to tell me what it is, but to document for yourselves what your architectural design considerations is going to be for your next generation interface. So my question is, did you get around documenting anything or even thinking about it?
No.
No, but what
No.
I have done is document what I had done in the past, in my
Okay,
previous
perfect.
application.
Okay. No, it was because it's very important as we go through this to continuously, please just think about this, and also let's, if you see a statement and you disagree with it, at the end when I get to the question and answer section or slide for that particular section, let's discuss that at that point in time, because I think it's very important that you understand what it is that influenced the choices we've made. Now, critical, and I made this point during the December session, is our absolute objective, our key potential clients is the genuine small, medium installations, which usually has less than 5 developers, and quite often it is 1 or 2 people, and often, in actual fact, a contract programmer that is brought in to maintain the application. And very interesting, and this is quite interesting to observe, approximately 80% of the installed base in the world are clients, are people, are installations like that.
Yep.
Now, Built-Right is a very interesting installation in that it is very small. It is small, medium business, but Bernard have been able to keep the installation current on the operating system and on the hardware. It's very important to understand that most of the clients in that space, in fact, are people that are on older releases of the operating system and older releases of the hardware. And this is really one of the things that we are trying to do, to bring the people that are on earlier versions of the operating system and of the hardware, to bring them up to date and current. Also, a fundamental consideration from day one was that we will not entertain screen scraping of any sorts. There's maximum focus from our side to leverage native IBM I functionality and operating system value propositions. And it's very important to understand this, and this is why we've turned the entire education session around to talk from the database up before we actually look at the user interface, because most people start at the user interface. And the moment you do that, you lose the importance of data centricity. And you will see that we're coming back to data centricity all the time, and then getting maximum out of the IBM I operating system. Because as an operating system, I'm sorry to say, and I'm not even, well, in actual fact, I'm not even going to apologize. There is nothing that can touch this operating system. It is in a class of its own. Now, very important is to understand that we're leveraging the ILE programming model, and you've seen how we go about that. And very important, a very large percentage of the installed base believe they are using ILE, and they don't. And I think you've seen this when we actually talk through some of the things in your installation. The fact that you use the ILE compiler does not make the code ILE. It's very, very important to understand that. And it's really, you will see that everything we've done is to leverage the ILE programming model, which is marvelous. Exploiting user spaces extensively, because the performance gains that user spaces facilitate is just absolutely astounding. User indexes, work management, the work management constructs on the operating system is exceptionally powerful, and really in a class of its own. And it is something that really needs to be leveraged. Library lists is a very powerful feature of the operating system, and we spend a lot of time to try and get the maximum from the library lists. Job descriptions, the integrated security. It's one of the things that I think the older guard struggles with, because we've grown up in the time, or we did most of our career in the time where everybody believed that the platform is unhackable. Sadly, with the introduction of certain components, it is no longer the case. Yes, the IBM I operating system itself is absolutely securable and is absolutely unhackable if you have done the right things, if you have implemented the right security posture. And it's something that very few people know, but it's actually designed into the actual hardware platform, that you really have a situation where the operating system hardware combination, if you have implemented your security properly, it cannot be hacked and it cannot be broken. But it's very important to understand the potential risks, because due to the fact that people of our age group have grown up with this perspective, they tend to be, or they very easily can become very lax from a security posture perspective, and they can open themselves up to a lot of heartache. Then very important, integrated message handling. You've seen that when Tommy went into the way we go about the message percolation. It is one of the the absolute gems of the operating system is the fact that the entire operating system is message-based. And it's very important to remember and to understand that. Due to the fact that the entire operating system is message-based, the kinds of things you can do by leveraging the system messages and the system message file constructs is absolutely immense. Journaling, we don't even have to talk about the fact that journaling and commitment control these days, and especially in the online world, it's not even a point of discussion. The older installations in actual fact quite often did completely without journaling and commitment control, because in the early days when commitment control was introduced, it was very complex code. And as a result, people shied away from it. In the modern paradigm, there's absolutely no reason to actually shy away. In actual fact, you should leverage it. Very important that we aimed for a stateless mechanism to actually deliver AO open. And then very important, and you will see, and sorry that I'm hammering the point, but it is crucial that you must, in actual fact, adopt, or installations that want to exploit AO open must adopt genuine data centricity. Striving for third normal form normalization, and we've talked about how you can achieve that without breaking your applications. And I know that Tommy, in actual fact, is planning to do a far more detailed session to actually go through the process of how you can go around or go about this without breaking your applications. And I know that we've touched on it. Then enforcing all of your data validation rules with before triggers, enforcing all entity relationships by way of the various DB2-4I constraints. Prevent orphan records, and this particular one, and it's very interesting to follow all of the AI discussions and the cognitive computing discussions, etc. What people need to understand that if no matter how powerful an AI component you implement on top of your legacy applications, the answers you're going to get from it is only as good as the quality of the data on which it is based. And it actually is amazing to realize how many people miss that point. AI will just take you faster to the scene of the accident if you have data that is unreliable. Then ensuring absolute separation between applications and the database by way of the IO servers. Facilitating secondary updates by way of after trigger processing. And Tommy is going to demonstrate this next week to you. All database processing occurs within DB2-4I using permanent objects. Very important point. It's permanent objects. It's not dynamically created on demand by the SQL engine. It's very important because remember, you pay a performance hit if it is dynamically created on demand, unless that result set is stuff that is ad hoc or seldomly used. Then it is absolutely perfect. But it's very, very important to at your database layer to actually have permanent constructs in place where performance is critical. Maximum processing on native IBM I, and I have to stress this point, and you'll see when we get to the actual solution and we look at pace, that we want as much as possible to be done on IBM I. And the reason for that is due to the immense power and the immense capabilities that you have at your disposal in IBM I. Now, this is also a very, very important point for everybody that considers AO open or potentially considers AO open, is to realize that our perspective is that your user interface should be as thin as possible, the smallest possible footprint. And it is there to really leverage and enhance the presentation capabilities. Now, very important, I don't want to diminish the importance of the user interface. It's a vital component, but it is important for us, and specifically in the small, medium business space, it is really the objective to leverage as much as possible in the back end and only use the UI to present the data and to request the data, and then to manipulate it from a presentation perspective into graphics, into executive dashboards, etc., etc. We are using 2 of the web server offerings available in PACE to maximize the benefit to the small, medium business installed base, due to the fact that they've got this within their machine, and it is something where we believe it can be used to great effect and cost efficiency. Provide secure authentication and security services exploiting the inherent IBM security capabilities. So the whole time we focused on how we can extract the maximum value out of the IBM operating system. Deliver and securely render base, bread, and CRUD JSON payloads to authenticated users. And it's important to remember that, again, as a rule of thumb, about 80% of your data that you deliver to a client of any sort, whether it's a 5250 device or anything else, conforms to the bread/CRUD. And I'm sure everybody is familiar with the terminology, but it's browse, read, edit, add, and delete, or CRUD, which is something that we, Tommy and I and Clifford, and I'm sure Bernard, you as well, actually grew up with. Change, read, update, and delete JSON payloads. To dynamically parse and prepare all JSON requests for processing by the CGI job. Now, you will note the asterisk there because it is something that we are actively researching at this point in time, because we've decided from day one that we don't want to rewrite parsers just for the sake of it. There's a lot of good value potentially to be had in the community, and it is something that we are looking at very seriously at the moment. Provide a foundational responsive user interface framework, which can then easily be augmented by your SMB team members with JavaScript. And we've essentially standardized from our perspective on JavaScript for the presentation manipulation. And then suitable open source tool plugins, for instance, Mermaid and such offerings, and other collaborative tools and technologies. One of the objectives is to essentially create the conditions and environment that allow for these payloads to be presented in the most dynamic way possible. We're striving, and we have strived thus far and will continue to do so, for maximum integration and automation of the solution. One of the key objectives from the beginning was to keep the skills requirement portfolio as lean and as mainstream as possible. You don't want to go off the reservation, so to speak. You want to play in the space where there's lots of skills and lots of open source contributions available. And that is really one of the remarkable things of the platform. And I've shared with you that the SMB installations, many of them in actual fact are 1 or 2 man installations, is that what they were able to do for the business by a single person, where if you look at competitive platforms and competitive environments, it takes a team. And this is why the platform, in actual fact, is so dearly loved by the people that know the platform, is they know that they can do with a platform things that other people can only dream of. And I'm talking in terms of efficiency, in terms of the size of their teams. It was a critical consideration, and this is one of the reasons why we're open sourcing a lot of the components. We do not want any technology or vendor dependency or lock-in. You should really be able to actually become completely and utterly self-reliant and not be dependent on somebody that can abuse the situation. And I believe there's a lot of abuse going on in the IT industry at this stage, because once vendors had the ability to lock you in, they can then charge you an arm and a leg and not necessarily adding any value. And there's many examples of that. Then, very important, it must serve AO Foundation and AO Open must serve as a foundation for innovation. Then critical, and you've seen this, and you will see when we actually walk through the actual design, is performance is absolutely, absolutely paramount. And it comes back to what, when you listen to the size of the machines that Tommy worked on, that I worked on, that Bernard worked on, in the early days when we had little memory and we had not very powerful processors, efficiency was absolute key. And in the small, medium businesses, we believe that those installations are still very, very interested in the performance of their application. And then obviously scalability. Now that is our set of criteria that influences all of the choices and decisions around AO Open. Bernard, how does that sound? Is there anything else that you think we may have missed?
Regarding security, maybe it's obvious, but you don't talk about secure communication between the browser and the IBMI.
Probably, as you say, because it goes without saying.
Yeah, probably. Okay, so this is one thing. We don't have SSL communication between our client. We use Access Client solution without SSL at this time. We are working on it, but not yet. So.
But again, Bernard, it actually demonstrates, and Tommy and I, funny enough, had that conversation earlier today. The average small, medium shop are so busy trying to plug all of the holes, and I'm talking from an application perspective, that all of these infrastructure issues that we, it was always taken care of for us, now suddenly is a major issue. And if you want to play in the modern economy, and I'm talking, where everything is online, security is absolutely of paramount importance. And the issue here is we have the most securable operating system. Why don't we leverage the inherent capabilities of that and actually ensure that nothing goes out in the public domain that is not explicitly under our control by default?
But no, the list that you provided, other than that, the list you provided is pretty exhaustive. I think I don't see anything missing.
Okay, I want you to mull that one over, and please, if there's anything that we may have missed, because that's the problem. If you eat, sleep, and drink something, it's very obvious, or it's very easy to actually miss something that, because it goes without saying. You just assume, okay, well, it's it's important, and you know it, but you don't actually share it with everybody. Right. Females always have this, how can we put it, results with males, don't they? And look at how innocent she's looking at this.
Yeah. Those are young males, I think.
It's two young males. It's probably two brothers if you actually look at the genetics. And yes, they're having a difference of opinion who's going to have a conversation with a female. But any case. Okay. We're now going to delve into the actual high-level presentation on the actual session itself. Sorry, I just have to, because some of these applications, due to the fact that I had to reboot my system. Okay, right. My Node.js version is also up and running by the look of things. Okay. Please acknowledge that what I'm sharing with you here is our perspective. Now, due to the fact that you're working on the web, you can move stuff around and actually implement a different design paradigm very, very easily. Due to the fact that it is JSON payloads that are coming your way, and you can decide how you're going to use the real estate that you've got available to present your user interface, that you may decide that you want a different model of implementation. But I just want to share with you our thought patterns around what it is that we've been doing and why we've put the solution together the way that we have. Is on the left-hand side, you've got essentially our application navigation functions. And I will show you the moment when we actually log in. I just wanted to first talk through the high-level components. So left-hand is the functionality navigation. And then the top bar is for your security, log on, log off, etc. It also, in actual fact, has a breadcrumb section, and you will see it activated just now. And it also has a section that provides all of the messages. And that is why the messages coming back from IBM I is so important. There is such a wealth of information that you can provide back to your end users and really intelligent response on what they've chosen, that we've decided from day one that it is something that has got to be leveraged to the absolute maximum, and to make all of that and surface all of that inside of this user interface. Now let's then delve into this and log in. Now you can see I've been doing quite a bit of testing and stuff because we've implemented long passwords on this. You will notice that everything is secure. To come back to your question, Bernard. It is absolutely imperative that nothing should be in the clear. And please note that the moment I logged in, you would have noticed that all of the authorized application functions in actual fact now displays. Now, please understand that this is a proof of concept. We've done a lot of testing and R&D on this, on what will provide the maximum benefit. And we know now, in actual fact, how to go about this. We've been working on this, and in actual fact, that's the remarkable thing. We were absolutely horrified recently when we realized that this code that you are looking at, yes, there's been fine tunes and we did a lot of tweaks in between, but this code was actually written about 3 or 4 months before View 3 came out in 2019, which is why View 3 in actual fact is right now a major issue, because the framework and the technology has matured to such an extent and the community is so active that there is a lot that View 3 is going to actually offer to anybody that wants to leverage what we are doing. Now, important, and I think Tommy did show this briefly last time, but the moment we authenticate the user, the IBM I issues a token, and that is a token that is generated by the operating system. And all sessions and all communications with this particular conversation henceforth will, in actual fact, have that token in the header to ensure that nothing can be inserted into this. So it's very important. And again, you will notice here that it basically confirms that I logged in 2 minutes ago, and that in 58 minutes, it will auto shut down if no work is done. Remember, it actually knows that it's active, so that in actual fact is rolling.
Okay.
So as long as you are active, that will not be an issue. It is when you are not active that your session, the token will be destroyed. To ensure that people cannot access an unintended workstation and then use it for ulterior motives. Now, the next thing, and I'm trying to talk through all of the design paradigms and explaining all of the thought patterns around this. You will note immediately that the way we go about this, we open first and foremost the various tab views, and this is the standard bread or crud tab views. But please note the amount of real estate that we have for other tabs that you can render additional information, different perspectives, for instance, where you can manipulate graphics or have a dashboard or have an entity relationship diagram. We actually, in the process of looking at how we can present a fully functional, and if I say fully functional from a presentation perspective, entity relationship diagram of your database, showing you the constraints, showing you the triggers, showing you how the whole database hangs together from a view perspective, because we all know how powerful an entity relationship diagram is. But it's very important to actually notice specifically the power and the ease of use, and also the speed in which this thing actually delivers the results. Now, remember, these results sets are generated on the fly as per our request. So we send a request, and Tommy will go into this in a lot more detail. We send a request, the IBM I receives that, prepares the result set, and sends the result set back. Now, very important, typically in the web world, it's very difficult if you have, and if you can think subfile for a moment, you know that if you page down, if your subfile is coded correctly, you basically only load the next set of records. In our case, what we do is everything is prepared based on your search criteria, and we'll get to that in a moment. But we immediately calculate the number of records that actually fulfill that particular request. And it's important for you to notice here, and it actually tells you that we've got 1,139 records on this file. Now, you will notice that there's one record extra because when Tommy did this exercise with you in December, there was 1138, if I recall correctly. I just added one particular record earlier today, just to actually ensure that everything was still intact and still up and running. But the important thing is that I can immediately, and the important thing here and the benefit of doing this is imagine if you can position in a subfile immediately to the record that you want to process or the record that you want to work with, which provides you to a large degree that ability where you can either do it page at a time, or very important, where I can in actual fact immediately skip to the last page and look, for instance, at the large record that was added to this. And you can see this record was added earlier today. And it's very important to, and specifically what I'm trying to get at is that you want to make this interface as productive as possible for the end users. So I've talked through this, the fact that your page numbers are automatically calculated based on the number of records that you decided you want to show. And please, again, this is our recommendations. This is not cast in concrete. Due to the fact that this is open source, you can decide on your own criteria of going about this. But let's quickly look at the way that an end user may want to use this. And in this particular case, let's go and look at all the records on this file. Very important, here you see the message area that I talked about. And you will also see the breadcrumb that I referred to, which means that your users will be able to switch very, very quickly between application functions and application perspectives. And the message area tells us that 99 records in actual fact matched that particular set of conditions, or the search criteria that we've specified. We've talked about the dynamic page navigation and record count. We've reviewed the search functionality. We can quickly actually add a record, and I want to demonstrate that to you. Now let's quickly do something. Here I'm running, if I can choose it, there I do. This is the local version of the development code that I'm working on at the moment. Let me show you. In the next session, we will look at this a lot more, but there you are looking at the actual code of this particular solution. And I just wanted to show you that. The important thing here is, as a result, I've got a local version running on my system to assist me to assist developers to be a lot more productive. So you don't need connectivity all the time. Although in the background, you're going to see in a moment that I am communicating with IBM I in the background. So I can test everything that I code on the front end without uploading it to Apache and to Nginx, but I can test all of the JavaScript code locally, which is very important, in my opinion. Now, let's just double check that we've got the same situation. In actual fact, let's do exactly the same thing that I've just done. 99 records. So consistent, the same answers. And what I'm going to do is I'm now going to add a new record. And let's, in actual fact, let's make this Bolt-Right Tech Review 2. A1, okay, and yeah, I'm just using the functionality that's available in the browser to make my life a little bit easier. And let's go and select, and this is just to demonstrate, for instance, drop-down lists. Ouch! And this is what happens when you fiddle around. 1190 has been added. Now let's go here. This is now on the local instance. Still accessing the IBM I in the background. Come on. Sorry, I'm just trying to get, I have, this toolbar was in the way of navigation. Right. Let's go to search and let's go and search for anything with Bolt-Right in the name. And there is the record that has just been added on the web version. There you can see HTTPS Tembo72 on tembotechlab.com. And I think that is how far I'm going to go into the high-level thought pattern and the design criteria around this for the moment. I now want to actually delve into the, or return to the actual presentation itself. Now, what's going on here? Why am I not? Right. Any questions on how far we got thus far?
If you open a second program, is it going to open a second tab, or you're going to? Because we were looking at the breadcrumb, so you need probably to open another browser session if you want to be on two programs at the same time.
No.
You should be able to just open another tab and use the same logon session for now to access a second application.
Okay.
Great. Anything else?
Nope.
Right. Let's charge ahead. Now, this is the screen that I've alluded to earlier on, and I'm just briefly going to talk through this because we're going to spend quite a bit of time on this particular graphic over the next couple of sessions to really talk through this. But really, the point I'm trying to get across is that we've tried to leverage as much as we could of what is available stock standard within the box, within IBM I. Now, a word of caution, and for a long time, I had an intense hate of PACE because of the fact that it opened up the Pandora's box on the platform in my, and that was my initial perspective on this. But it's extremely important to realize that you've got an exceptionally powerful tool at your disposal. But it's the old adage, with great power comes great responsibility. And it is important to understand, and that is why I've spent so much time on this particular graphic originally, to understand exactly how PACE fits in. Because a lot of people have this perspective and perception that PACE runs under IBM I. It does not. Very important. However, what IBM achieved in terms of integrating an AIX, and really what PACE is it is an AIX runtime that allows Unix type applications and Linux type applications to be ported to the platform, but it is ported as binaries to PACE. And then integration is written between PACE and the IBM I. Now, there's two components that we are using and leveraging extensively. The one is Nginx, and it is to serve as a reverse proxy because we don't want to expose Apache at all to the outside world. You don't want, remember, there is a default configuration in Apache, which a lot of installations use to play around with. Please understand the moment you run the default installation, and if the rest of your security posture is not absolutely tight, you are potentially opening up yourself for a lot of heartache. So in our implementation, we're using Nginx as a reverse proxy, and the reverse proxy then communicates with Apache. So Apache is not exposed to the outside world. But it is extremely important to grasp the relevance of what I've indicated here. If you get somebody that comes in from the outside that knows AIX intimately, they can get at your hardware. It's very important to understand that. And you come in below the operating system. The operating system, in terms of where you typically access it, is at this level. XCPF, just as a matter of interest for those that don't know, the operating system on the System 38 was called CPF, Control Program Facility. What IBM did when they brought the AS400 out, on which IBM I is based, they extended CPF, and XPF stands for Extended CPF. Then you have the technology independent machine interface, and Bernard, this is what you alluded to earlier on, where it was possible for IBM to move from the CISC-based processors to the RISC-based processors from a 48-bit, the AS400 was a 48-bit processor, from a 48-bit processor to a 64-bit processor, and immediately use the full register, all 64 bits. So all I want to really stress on this particular slide is to please understand, and it's specifically with our eyes and our perspective on the small, medium businesses, is to understand that due to the fact that there is such immense power and capability within PACE, that they have to ensure that their security posture is optimal. It is absolutely critical. Because believe me, if there is one area that will most likely be targeted, it will be that side, and then also unsecure communications in the World Wide Web. Very important then, Apache communicates with the HTTP server subsystem, and then JSON, the JSON driver. Tommy, this is where you can kick in, and I will then close off with a slide that we've just looked at. So Tom, you can please take control.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you.
I'm trying to share, but I can't. Why can't I? Ah, there we are. Share contact. Include sound. Presenter mode. What on earth? What's it doing? You must just let go of the share, please. I can't.
Okay.
Practice you that's better. Now can I share my?
We practice this, and but anyways.
I know. And why can't I share now? Oh, there we are. Now I can share. Right, there we are. Right. Can you see my screen? Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, so the fact that you thought you'd got rid of me, sorry about that, but you haven't.
Okay, gents, my laptop have just started warning me. Energy saving is fun. Okay, we'll press ahead as far as we can and take it from there.
Let me go ahead. All right. My part in this is just to cover at a high level the different pieces that make up the JSON, the AO open functionality on the IBM side. I fortunately have specialized on the IBMI, and I have left people like Marinus and Clifford to worry about all those other horrible little things. So it's right. The world, that's the world which I don't like to play in because it's too complicated for an old man like me. But I do know that from your terminal or your PC, you communicate to the World Wide Web, and then the World Wide Web communicates to the HTTP server, as you saw earlier, and that passes control to what we've chosen to call the JSON driver. Now, this is supplied, this is the AO open components that are supplied to you as part of AO open. But I have to stress, all of this is an example. It's a template driven, the JSON driver is a template. We've provided 2 templates, which are used to create the basic JSON driver, which usually relates to a single database, physical or logical file. This is the base configuration and provides normal bread functionality. It is important, again, I reiterate, this is a basic bread service that we have set up with templates. The template allows you to create a JSON driver for each database file, physical or logical. It is open source. You can do what you like with it, and you can make it bigger or smaller, and you can change it so that it does different things. Its main task is to receive a request and return a response. That's what the JSON driver does. What it does in between those 2 steps is entirely up to the people who wrote this thing. So the template that we've provided produces the bread functionality, but the bread functionality on its own doesn't happen out of the blue. I don't know how much you know about JSON and what it makes up and how it works. But JSON is a relatively simple communications protocol, which, if you want to learn about it and understand how it comes together and how it works, you can use that link to go to w3schools.com, and you can get a JSON example and an explanation of what it is and how it works, etc., etc. It's basic, but this is how I learned what JSON was. Somebody told me I had to do something with JSON, and I used this to tell me what it was basically about. So if you are not sure what JSON is in detail, come here. This is the link, and you can then do a basic course in JSON construction. However, from this, and this is where you have to realize just how dynamic this is. I created a document called the JSON protocol, which is designed specifically to deliver the bread functionality. And I'm going to just open this as well so that you can see what it is. It's a description of the protocol that is used in this environment, in this browse, read, edit, add, and delete environment to actually communicate with the client. And it's the protocol for receiving and returning messages in the JSON protocol. So the services provided are logon, and it lists, as you can see here, it lists the, well, I don't know why it's doing that, but the format of the logon statement, which needs to be prepared by the client, and the response will be the JSON token. So this describes the protocol, the JSON protocol that's been devised by us for use with the AO Open components that we've provided. If you wish to communicate, you see here, action select, count, offset, limit, columns. These are keywords that trigger certain actions out of the JSON driver. If you want to change, sorry. Question? No, okay. If you wanted to add a new function, you obviously would have to go and insert a new protocol process, a new protocol keyword, a new request and response statement in order to make that happen. So the document is provided as is to support current bread functions. Okay, so that's what the JSON driver does. It interacts with the World Wide Web through the various bits and pieces that Marinus is going to communicate. It collects information from a file based on the request and returns a response to the client. Now, there are a couple of other things that are included in AO Open. The one is the authorization services. Now, the authorization services is a service program. Sorry, first of all, there are 3 driver programs for the auth services. There's a logon program, there's an auth reset program, and there's a log off program. Now, just briefly, the logon program uses the auth services to validate user ID and password. The standard AS400 user ID and password is required as input, and the authorization services, which I will go through in a lot more detail in the next session, will check that password against that profile, and if it is valid, it will issue a token, which will then be returned to the client terminal. And it is that token which has to be on all further communications with that particular client. So you can have multiple clients running through the same JSON driver, the same logon, but they will be receiving different tokens. So those are the auth services, and the auth services are maintained or contained in a service program that at the moment has only got one module. Sorry, I'm getting a message from Marinus, and I suspect he's saying to me that his battery has gone dead.
No. It was, sorry, that was just to let you guys know what the status is. Just
Okay.
Sorry.
You're on battery.
Yes.
Sorry. Okay, so the
So
authorization
we have
is a
52 minutes to wrap up, Tommy.
Have I? Oh boy.
Yeah, that's what that screenshot says. Yes.
Okay, 52 minutes. Oh boy. Okay, I better hurry. So there's a service program which contains the authorization services. Now, obviously, again, these authorization services are designed to operate within the environment that AO Open is providing with the bread functionality. If you wish to expand that, this is all open source, and you will be able to expand your authorization services by adding your own procedures. Right. The other component that is provided by AO Open are the parsing services. These services are what receive, identify, and disassemble the JSON string coming in that translates it from UTF-8, which is the standard communications protocol we use through the web, is a UTF-8 protocol. But obviously, anything that's coming in has to be now converted into the local CCSID, which I think in your case is some mix of 37 and 500, or unless you've stabilized that. But there are all sorts of services in there. And again, next week, I will be going through these in a lot more detail so that you can see what they are available. But again, they've been developed and evolved for providing this particular bread type services in AO Open. It works. You've seen it work, and it works exceptionally quickly. However, if you need to expand it or modify what it's delivering, or you want to ask for different things, then you would have to create your own drivers and add to your auth services or your parsing services if you wish to do so. So that is, in essence, what AO Open, the components that AO Open are providing as part and parcel of this whole exercise. I will be building JSON drivers for the ProdOrd and Prod IP7, MIP7, whatever it is, next week. So I'll show you what it is, how to build a driver, and then I will walk you through the actual code of the driver so you can understand the bits and pieces that are being used. These JSON drivers serve a dual purpose. They handle the in and out of the JSON payload, but in addition, they also act as I/O servers for the database file, physical or logical file that they are based over. So that's why we've called them drivers, but they are the JSON drivers. They're not I/O servers. But this file would also have I/O servers, which could be used by internal applications at the same time as the JSON driver is attaching this file for external use. So it's as flexible and as complete as possible. All of this I will go through in a lot more detail when I got a bit more time, but I'm being chased by Marinus, or Marinus's battery rather. So I have to move to this. You know the standard. Are there any questions that I can answer at this point in time? Probably not.
Nope.
Because that was, yeah. No questions, Bernard?
No question for me.
Joel? No. Okay. All right. So that is that is all I have to say. Now I'm trying to find the button that. Have you taken over, Marina?
I've taken over. Sorry, Tom.
You have. You swiped it from me.
I've swiped it. Yes.
Okay.
Hey, this is Africa.
If you don't want to style and bolt it down, even then it's not.
Technically, this is Canada. We're outnumbered, Marinus.
Yeah. There's a majority here.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, guys. And we'll talk next week a lot more.
Okay.
Right. Thanks, Tom. Yeah, I'm sorry, the battery is rushing me. So you can never accept that what they tell you in terms of how long your battery is going to last, that it will actually last that long. But in any case, so let's just get back to this. Tom, thanks for detailing the JSON drive, and I think this will start really cementing down by the end of the next session and the beginning of the third session. Because this particular slide, I'm going to spend a lot of time going through this over the next couple of weeks and talking about this. For purposes of for the next part of the explanation, I've tried to keep it as simple as possible from an animation perspective, because it's very important to get a feel for how everything actually communicates with each other. So for purposes of simplification, I'm going to drop Nginx out of the dance. You know what Nginx is doing. It's there to provide a reverse proxy and to hide the Apache server to the outside world. And from here onwards, I'm actually going to go through the process and just talking through all of the components that play a role in the solution. And we will come back to this particular slide quite a few times as I talk through the troubleshooting, the art of troubleshooting the solution. Now, very important is to understand that the trigger, in actual fact, is the client that actually starts this entire process, which they will start with a URL or a link on a web page, and it will connect with the the DNS server to actually see if it is known. If it's not known, it rejects and says, sorry, 404, I don't know this destination. Alternatively, if it is known, it will forward the call to PACE. And if I refer to PACE henceforth, please understand I'm referring to Nginx and the Apache, the combination of the two. So the request is forwarded, and then based on that, the initial information is served from PACE back to the client, which then presents the website. Still unauthenticated, as I've demonstrated earlier on today. You then enter valid IBM credentials. And based on the credentials, it then, in actual fact, starts a session through the CGI, the Common Gateway Interface process. And it starts a job under that particular user profile with that profile token that is included in this process. So from that moment onwards, although it is stateless, you have a secure connection to your backend system. Clifford, if I make any mistakes in the terminology I use here, please, it's more important that what we share is 100% correct than my ego.
Oh, thanks, Marinus. You're on track for the moment. Thanks, no problems.
Right. It's very important, and really, as I've indicated earlier on, Bernard, a fair chunk of my life I spent in the guts of subsystems and journals and high availability with high availability tools, etc., etc. And as a result, I knew subsystems specifically intimately. In actual fact, it was the one subject that I always prided myself that I probably knew best on the platform. And I was absolutely baffled in the early days of putting the solution together, where I wanted to manipulate this subsystem and do things to this subsystem, you know, in terms of putting it into separate memory pools and playing with the priorities of jobs, etc., etc. And I realized I couldn't do anything to that subsystem. And that is due to the fact that this subsystem is responsible for the integration with Apache. Now, it's very important to understand that, and to understand that there are a bunch of system jobs that run between these two that actually keep the communications going, that check the health, etc., etc. But it's very important to understand that what happens is you log on, Apache forwards the request if everything is kosher up to that point, forwards it to the QHTTP server subsystem, and then the QHTTP server subsystem then starts communicating with the JSON drivers that we've provided, and the AOO open solution in its entirety. And based on the request that was received, it then returns this to the subsystem. The subsystem returns it to Apache or to PACE. As I said, I will talk collectively between the two. And this is then as a secure information, as encrypted information rendered back to the client. And that is the essence of the solution. Now, it looks very simple, and it is actually very simple, but it's very important to break down the communications to the sections to understand how that all hangs together. And that is as far as I'm going to go with today's session. I don't think I've missed anything. Clifford, is there anything that I've missed on this part of the presentation that you are aware of?
Not that I can think of. We can go into a lot more detail if there's questions. I'm sure Joel has lots of questions.
I'm sure. In session 3, we're really going to delve into the subsystem, into the various components, how to look at it, etc., etc. So yeah, this was just an overview to give a first perspective on how and what the solution looks like.
Maybe just one thing to add.
Yes.
It was not clear to me when you went through it now, and I know the system. So for people who don't work with web technologies on a regular basis, there's two different types of requests here, essentially. So that, Marinish, you mentioned the initial request from the client asking for the web page.
Yes.
That request is for that web page, the HTML content that you see in the browser. The flow is, as you said, but Apache just serves that without having to go anything further. Those are just static HTML files and JavaScript files, etc., that Apache is returning. All subsequent communications, logon requests, all of those CRUD requests, etc., are JSON requests that follow the full flow through Apache to QHTTP server and to the JSON driver and back. Hope that makes sense.
Thanks, Cliff. It does.
Okay. On the menu, let's call it the menu, the navigation bar on the left side.
Yes.
I'm assuming that there is a database, an application database, where all of the available application are listed into that database to populate the left side of the the web page, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So we're going to go a bit the detail here.
Yeah, it is in actual fact that will be part of our last session, Bernard. We will go into that in a lot of detail because remember, in actual fact, one of the points specifically on my last slide in terms of the agenda, you may recall that I referred to the enterprise role-based authentication module. That module we also are going to make available to the entire community, very similar to that little application that Tommy is going to demonstrate next week, where what we've done is the sign-on to application that we are busy redeveloping or implementing within the modern paradigm. They actually have an integrated role-based authentication module, and we're going to use that module as the basis to actually provide role-based authentication to the entire community, because anybody that has a requirement to have a web-based functionality exposed, in actual fact, will have that requirement where you want the functions that a user can perform file-based and dynamically basically determine what it is that they can do and dynamically build the functions that they can perform. So yes, absolutely, and I'll talk about that in session 4.
Okay. Okay.
In quite a bit of detail, because that is the one component of what we are doing with enterprise and in actual fact with AOO Open that will be usable by the entire community. And specifically, as I said, remember, please, our objective is the small, medium installations, because those people will be able to get the most benefit from something like this.
Yeah. Marinus, if I could just add to that, and
yes,
maybe I'm preempting something you want to discuss in the next session, but maybe just worth spending a minute on the internal architecture of that front-end application. It needs some work still, but so what you saw there in the menu is hard-coded, but the goal is to change that. But the other stuff, so all of those CRUD functions you saw, the code that searched and listed and viewed and added and edited records in that customer master table in that example, but that code also that the list of representatives, the code's there already as well to handle that as a second example, add people there, etc. That code is generic. In other words, the same. That code doesn't have to be recreated or regenerated for every new JSON driver. At the moment, it is parameterized. At the moment, those parameters are hard coded in a JSON data structure. But the goal in the upcoming version now, which again we'll discuss in the next session, I guess, is to extract those definitions out of the AOO tables that drives everything else Tommy has been taking you guys through. So the point, and maybe I'm not being as clear as I hoped I would be, the point is that code, that aspect of the code in the front end does not have to be replicated. It's not a duplicate of what is being developed in the back end, where we'll just expose those AOF data structures to the front end, and those views that you see there are built dynamically. So the only missing link then is the list of what a user should be able to see and the what does the navigation look like to get there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, in actual fact, we will look at the code in quite a bit of detail in session 3, Bernard, and how the components, because it is very nice and very well structured and componentized. You know, the view and this particular environment allows itself for a lot of small AOO type components. And you will see how all of these little components, like Lego blocks, how it works together, and it's truly, I believe it's quite remarkable. But yeah, you be the judge of that. But saying that, it's really my battery and I both feel this way at the moment.
What is that?
So
hungry for the meat on the left?
Pardon?
Well, how's that? Hungry for that meat on the left?
No. In actual fact, I feel like the meat on the left.
All right.
Is there any questions at this stage? And do you feel we've achieved something today?
Well, yes, because today the plan provided is much more detailed. And, you know, the other day we went over a rough overview of all of this. But
Yes.
now we know where we're going with all of the detailed components. And yes, yeah, I think we achieved something. I don't know if Ludwig and Joel are excited or not, but we're going to have discussions. We do already do some web stuff using Node.js.
Yes.
And so, you know, we'll see. But I don't know. What's your opinion on this, Joel?
Well, I'm trying to fit in the previous image you showed us with the architecture, where Node.js fits in all of that.
No, so we'll cover that again in a later session properly,
Yeah.
Joel. But Node.js doesn't fit into that once it's up and running. The web app that you're seeing there is a single page application.
Okay.
We're just using Node.js during development to build it.
Yes.
It isn't actually necessary at runtime.
Okay. So basically, what we do here is like we use Node.js as a replacement for Nginx, I guess.
Okay, as a server. Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And instead of a JSON driver, we use UDBC.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
I think that's what we do.
Yeah. But you know, I think it's a bit early just to evaluate the whole thing. But yeah, that's interesting. Well, security is one thing, and you know that's one thing I want to discuss with Joel regarding that reverse proxy. I hope we have something similar to that, because we have an application that is used on a daily basis on cell phones. So we don't want to have trouble.
I think Apache is doing the reverse. It points to our Node.js.
Yeah, maybe, but we have to make sure.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. The encryption is the key. As long as those connections from the outside into your system is HTTPS.
Yes, it is.
There's various options that all achieve the same result.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one of the reasons, aside from the isolating Apache from the outside world, one of the other reasons we're using Nginx there is just for internet-facing services specifically. It's really easy to add HTTPS to it and manage those keys, automatically renew, let's encrypt TLS certificates in Nginx. It's a pain to do that in Apache. You have to fiddle manually with DCM stuff every 3 months.
Yeah, I don't know about us, Joel. What about our token?
Well, I think you are doing it because I don't know how you manage the certificate for the HTTPS.
Yeah, we did the certificate part, but for each session token, is this
Oh,
done?
there's
The
a
user authentication token.
Yeah.
user. It's in the Node.js. I use a module for that.
Okay.
Okay. If I may butt in here, I think what we should do, Bernard, and that's why I provided that set of criteria, in terms of what our considerations was, and why I think it may be a very good idea for yourself to actually, draft a list of your design criteria. But on top of that, that is why we turned this discussion around. Instead of making it a skills transfer, making certain assumptions, we said, no, let's take a step back. Let's show you what it is that we're doing, where we intend going with this, and then see if there's any value and parts that you may want to use going forward. And then at the end, in the last session, we can talk through that in a lot of detail, because there's quite a few things that we've got in R&D and conceptually that is required for enterprise, and we now in the phase where we're pushing this forward very, very aggressively. And as a result, thought, well, this is the perfect time to actually have this discussion and then show you what it is that we can potentially do, and for you to decide whether it's relevant to you or not.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, but I've got to run. Otherwise, I'm just going to disappear, and that you don't want.
Okay, but that was a really great session.
Wonderful. I'm glad you feel that way.
Okay, guys, enjoy. See you.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you very much.
Thanks. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye.
Talk
Have a
next
great day.
week. Thank you.
Yes. Okay.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Well, hello.
Bye, guys.
Hi. Okay, I'm going to send you this, bit that I wrote on constraints. I've rewritten it about 100 times, and I don't think I've improved on it very much. But I'm going to send it to you and let you decide, or before I send it out. But I've got to get on with sending out some more information, or otherwise I'll get nobody, to follow me anymore.